Hello, I'm your host, Efi Pylarinou, and I'm delighted today to have with us a wonderful woman who is in technology and a legal expert, Irina Heaver, who is a lawyer and a partner in a legal practice. What's it called, Irina?
NeosLegal.
NeosLegal in Dubai. And, I'm so excited to talk about the industry, blockchain for finance, the regulatory and the legal aspects of it, and the hubs that are booming in this area, and who else to talk to than a lawyer that's been in the UAE for a while. So welcome, Irina.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, Irina, tell us a little bit about your UAE journey, legal, crypto, blockchain for finance. You're an Australian-born lawyer, and I want to briefly hear about how you came to where you're at today, and then let's discuss about the UAE hub.
Yeah, so I moved to the UAE 17 years ago. I like to joke that I'm an early Dubai adopter. Back in the day, we did not have the vibrant ecosystem that we have now. Back in the day, we didn't have like every VC fund, every QL moving into Dubai. Of course, we didn't have that. I moved to work for national oil and gas companies by training. I'm an oil and gas lawyer, energy lawyer. I spent 13 years working for multinational oil and gas companies all over the world, negotiating deals directly with governments, lobbying governments for new legislation, drafting legislation for multiple governments, because as you can imagine, when an oil and gas company enters a new jurisdiction, there might be no particular legislation that is there in order to take advantage of the tax concessions, or in order to take advantage of the development sort of like leases that the oil and gas company obtained. So lobbying governments, working with governments, and drafting regulations for governments, this in order for a company to come in and to develop oil fields and gas fields. That was my expertise for 13 years. And what do we know? It's actually being very, very useful in the crypto space, because I'm doing exactly that. I'm lobbying governments on behalf of my clients, on behalf of the industry. I'm drafting regulations for governments when it comes to emerging technology. I'm advising governments on policy. Let's probably not tax this, and let's perhaps allow that business to happen in order to attract more desirable companies to establish in a particular jurisdiction. And having been working for national oil companies and developing joint venture agreements with sovereign wealth funds, let's say Mubadala, right, a multi-trillion-dollar sovereign wealth fund in the UAE, has given me a lot of access to governments, to the regulators, also gave me the understanding how things work. Because if you're an outsider, you might think, the regulatory process is in a certain way, but it's actually not. There's, you need to find a sponsor for your legislation. You need to lobby. You need to explain to the government why this legislation is really beneficial for the industry and for the development of the country. And then, if you're lucky, if you succeed, and if you're persistent, things move forward. So in 2005, I was general counsel within the largest shipping group in the world called Maersk. I'm sure you've seen the blue stars all over the containers in the ships all over the world. And in 2014 and 15, we had the first blockchain project that Maersk was testing. It was a pilot where a container from Mombasa was being shipped to Amsterdam, and we put it on blockchain. It wasn't really blockchain, it was Hyperledger. But back then, who knew the difference, right? We didn't know that for technology, in order to be accepted, it needs to be borderless, it needs to be permissionless, and it needs to be, censorship resistant. Back in the day, IBM sold us Hyperledger's blockchain, so we used it, right? We didn't
I
know.
remember that project and how, it was a very big deal at the time. And then, as things matured, technology matured, it had to be abandoned basically, but it was a milestone project. I find it fascinating, Irina, that, your energy expertise, from the physical energy sources of, oil and gas has been sort of moved to emerging technologies that need energy, right? Whether it's the advancements in AI or cryptocurrencies and virtual money, and how this has fused, if you want. I find that really fascinating.
Logical sense to me, right? If you turn your mind to what is Bitcoin, Bitcoin is money, right? Bitcoin is honest money, but it also the largest computer network that does require a lot of energy. So if you think about it, it's not, and if you think about what's needed in order to support crypto and Bitcoin projects, it's actually not that different, right? Than working for a sovereign wealth fund and pushing a $11 billion deal with the Chinese Bank of Development. That was my last project, the biggest one I've done. And the president of Turkmenistan came down and shook my hand because, the project was stalled for years and years. And when I came in, because I speak a few languages, so it was easier for me to speak to one party, like for example, in the UAE, to understand what is it that their concerns, what do they need to move forward. Then I spoke to the Turkmenistani parties, what is it that they need in order to push forward. And then, when you actually talk to people and you have to approach everybody with respect and that everybody deserves, you understand their point of view, then you can put the deal together. So, and it's actually not that different working in the crypto and blockchain space, right? You talk to the founders, you understand what is it that they need. The easy part for me is that I was a founder. I co-founded the second cryptocurrency exchange in the UAE, and it was the first professional trading cryptocurrency exchange back in 2018. I exited just before the pandemic. So being a founder of an exchange really prepares you like, the best MBA I've ever received, because you just have to do everything yourself. The regulations are non-existent. You have to deal with the banks, you have to deal with the customers, you have to deal onboarding the traders. I attended every cryptocurrency event around the world 3 times over, because at the events we'll present a project, we'll onboard the users and what the projects to get listed. So it was like MBA, there's none. So I guess if you put that together, sort of the corporate experience, the experience I gained working with governments, and then being a founder and also a big believer in Bitcoin and a huge Bitcoin maximalist, if you put this together, I think that's a nice rounded up experience that I take advantage of, supporting projects launching in the UAE particularly, but also anywhere in the world, because crypto is borderless, right? Bitcoin is borderless. However, jurisdictions have borders, so we kind of need to attach ourselves somewhere, but otherwise we have to think that we're launching a global project.
Yeah, Irina, I mean, the jurisdictional competition is real, not only in the blockchain space, I would say in fintech, where I focus in general, but it's more interesting and exciting in the blockchain for finance world. And I want to understand more, and I'm sure our listeners want to understand more, how did the UAE so fast become one of the top hubs in the digital assets space? I mean, you mentioned your entrepreneurial endeavor back in 2019, and from what you said, the ecosystem in the UAE then was not what we know today. So it's a very recent boom, or at least the result that we see. How did it happen? What are the main ingredients that have made it what it is today? And what's, in your opinion, the potential going forward?
That's a great question, because when people move to Dubai right now, or people move to the UAE right now, they see the regulations are there, they see multiple regulated VASPs providing services, they see banks providing, fiat on-ramps and off-ramps, they see the regulator who is super approachable, they see, lawyers and the accountants and the entire ecosystem is ready to support you. But gosh, that was not the case, just a few years ago. In order to understand how Dubai in particular in the UAE in general, developed in, in my mind as a number one crypto and Bitcoin capital in the world. And I'll get to that why. Of course, I'm super biased. Dubai has been my home for 17 years, but I do believe we're crypto and Bitcoin capital of the world. So we need to look all the way back, and probably all the way to 1987, when the president at the time established the first commercial free zone in the UAE free zone. So it was established as an area where foreign entrepreneurs and foreign businesses and foreign investors could come in, establish their businesses and trade with the UAE and also trade with the Middle East in general. Because if you think about the UAE as a location, it's right in the middle, right? We have like the entire Asia, multi-billion population, we have Africa and we have Europe, beautiful location. That's why UAE has always been on the path of all the trading routes, right? So that free zone was established in 1987 as a free port, right, where you could come in, establish your business and start trading with really the rest of the world. And that free zone model became so successful that a lot of other free zones started forming, and also free zones in other jurisdictions looking at that as like, oh, that is so successful, we need to copy that. Why are free zones successful? No taxation, 100% capital repatriation, 100% ownership of your business. Because up until recently in the UAE, we had a rule where as a foreigner, you could not own 100% of your company. You needed to have a local partner. That law has been removed now for most of the businesses, at least everything that is relevant for us. But of course, if you're running an airport sort of business and a bank or something strategic, oil and gas company, there's still some restrictions as to who can own those companies, which is fair enough because those requirements are quite universal across the world. So the free zones have proven to be successful, and a lot of founders and entrepreneurs started moving into the UAE. And now we have something like 45 free zones in the UAE. A very successful business model. Then what happened is the UAE started developing heavily in the fintech space, especially Dubai. So contrary to popular belief, Dubai does not have oil. Less than 1% of the UAE's oil production is in Dubai. So it's basically literally nothing. So how is Dubai growing into what we see now? It's services, banking services, services for, what do you call them?
Hospitality, leisure, entertainment, sports, yeah.
It's all services, right? That's how we get our money in the UAE in Dubai as a budget, not from oil sales. People think that everything is built on oil in Dubai. That's absolutely not the case, right? And then what do you need for those, foreigners coming here, moving in? You need a lot of banking and fintech and technology support, right? So Dubai started positioning themselves quite early in the days as the fintech hub. There is a financial free zone in Dubai, the IFC, and very early in the day, like we're talking about, 10 years ago, they established a fintech sandbox, right? If you're looking to develop an application for remittances, if you're looking to establish sort of like digital payments, this was the place for you. And Dubai quickly realized it actually works. It's fantastic. People are coming in, entrepreneurs are coming in. Yes, we're attracting big banks, but we're also attracting SMEs and we're attracting entrepreneurs. And if you think about it, more than 85% of people who are employed in Dubai are employed by SMEs. They're not employed by the banks, they're not employed by large corporations. So SMEs is the lifeblood of the economy, employing people, moving in their families, letting the company flourish. Then we had a few quite successful exits. For example, Kareem got sold to Uber and a few other successful exits. So then the VCs started flourishing, right? Because you cannot have startups without VCs. It also comes together, right? Then when the world shut down in 2020 with pandemic, Dubai literally had to sit down and think, what are we going to do? We don't have tourists coming in. How are we going to support? So there was a Dubai 30 agenda developed. I think it was called Dubai
2030.
33 agenda. I'll get back to you on the exact name of it. So this agenda was developed in order to push Dubai into the digital space, and digital space in everything, whether it's the currencies, we need to look at the digital currencies, whether it's, receiving a visa for your newborn child, we need to move in the digital space, whether it's receiving, a residency permit, we need to move into digital space. So there was a huge push in
both government services and enabling the private sector is what you're saying. By the way, does the Central Bank of Dubai, is there a CBDC in the works?
the UAE, yeah, it does have a central bank, and there is a CBDC in the works, and there's been one in the works for quite a while, and they've done some trials with Saudi. I'm a huge opponent of CBDCs for multiple reasons. So we don't have CBDC now in the UAE. We do have some digital dirhams in the works by private banks. 3 banks in the UAE approval in order to launch a stable coin, AD-backed stable coin. But there's nothing right now.
Okay, I think that's what I had read, the stable coin of the. So back to how the ecosystem evolved during the pandemic. You were putting the elements together.
So if you think about that, the early move to allow for entrepreneurs to come and freely establish in the UAE, then the technology positioning, then the regulatory positioning as a fintech hub, it's all kind of came together during the pandemic when the world shut down, and Dubai, we had a shutdown for about a month or so, but then Dubai said, no, we will reopen the businesses, we'll do it, if you want to vaccinate, but you don't have to. If you want to do this, do this. It was kind of very, very libertarian, actually. The approach really compared to Switzerland, right? Which was very libertarian during the shutdowns. And now we see, back in the day, Sweden and Switzerland and Dubai were criticized very heavily by, by people who were like, let's slow down, let's not work, let's not do business, let's just sit and wait for the pandemic to finish. But if we look back in hindsight is also always 2020. That was the right decision to remain open for business, to allow people to work, to allow people to continue running their operations. That was actually quite smart way. And so during the pandemic, so many people moved to Dubai. We're talking about top VCs. We're talking about top founders. We're talking, CZO of Binance moved to Dubai. We're talking about, number one, entrepreneurs.
But Irina, it was not only the pandemic. It was also kind of a crypto winter, right? During that period, compared. So does that play into why there was a move during that period from blockchain and crypto businesses to Dubai?
I don't see how the crypto winter facilitated the move, because if it's crypto winter, you have no money, and if you have no money, what are you doing in Dubai? So it's kind of, because it's not the cheapest place to be. So I don't see how that's related, but maybe that is. I don't know. But, nothing else is going on elsewhere. Let's just come to Dubai, enjoy the weather. Maybe that was their thinking behind it.
Yeah, I find it interesting because, as you said, it's not a cheap place. It's like you like Switzerland. You don't move here like in the meantime, as they say.
Yeah, but another thing about the UAE, it is super easy to move to the UAE. It takes 3 to 4 days to become a resident of the country. And that's why it's super, super successful for large companies. Like, imagine opening a company in Zurich. Are you able to employ a national from Hong Kong and a national from Canada? Absolutely not. You will not receive your permits. Whereas in Dubai, you open a company, 3 days, you can employ, 600 people and run your operations. And Dubai welcomes businesses, welcomes employing people, because more people move
You mean businesses that are basically decentralized in terms of their workforce? Is that what your
centralize your 600 people in Dubai in 3 days? When it comes to the regulatory, when it comes to permits for people to come.
Yeah. Would you say, Irina, that Dubai has forked English law, which is respected and, there's a trust already, and sort of adapted it in the era that we're living now to accommodate emerging technologies and how entrepreneurs are have to move at the speed of light, and everything's moving at the speed of light. Is that part of their recipe?
They haven't forked, they full-on adopted it. So in the UAE, there are two financial free zones which fully adopted English common law. That means that the courts system, the legal regime is fully under the English common law. Even dirham as a currency is not allowed in those jurisdictions because it is not considered to be the land of the UAE. It is a free zone under the cloak of the Queen. Well, now it's the King, right? So, and it was one of really interesting moves as well, because a lot of big companies didn't want to move into the civil law jurisdiction, which has Sharia law, which has, other sort of elements they don't know and they don't understand. But once the English sort of outposts under the English law were established in the UAE, a lot of businesses felt it was comfortable for them to be under the most known, most well-respected jurisdiction. So that's one of the ingredients, but that happened a long time ago. That did not happen just recently. The IFC is over 20 years old now. ADGM is 10 years maybe, don't quote me. So, and it's been quite successful. If you go to GIFC and ADGM, it's absolutely booming. ADGM is having a finance week in December, and I'll be happily attending it. And like thousands and thousands of people that travel from all over the world to participate. In the first event, they had maybe a couple of panels on crypto and digital assets. Last event, the whole second day was dedicated to digital assets, and this time, whole 2 days are being dedicated to digital assets. And that just shows that traditional financial institutions are adopting more and more of digital assets and more interested in that, which is fantastic, because I think everything is moving digital. Why should not money move digital?
100%. Irina, I mean, we could talk hours on these topics. I want to, as a last question, ask you about, the areas that are in your radar in terms of the legal development. What are they? Because there's regulations around stable coins, there's regulations around DeFi, there can be regulations around even AI and blockchain, which together can unlock value. There can be around cybersecurity. All these are relevant regulations that can either hinder, or if they're not favorable, or if they're not desired, or push the advancements. What's on your radar mostly from all these aspects in the UAE and maybe even globally?
As lawyers, we're here to support our clients. So if we have a client launching a stablecoin, of course, we need to understand the stablecoin regulations. If they're launching it in Europe, of course, we have to be very familiar with the European legislation and support them there. Or if they're doing, a decentralized project, we have to be very mindful what it takes to be a VASP and to make sure they don't breach the VASP laws. So as lawyers, we don't have the privilege of no, today we only look at this regulation because this is what we like and this is what we feel like. We're here to serve our clients. We have many government clients as well, and they come to us and they want to do something which makes no sense because, either we personally don't agree or we don't see the need of that in the market. So of course we try to explain to them that from the marketing point of view, from the market point of view, from the demand point of view, we don't see the need. Why do you go this way? Let's go this way. So we try our best to reason, explain, and lobby for the industry. And the regulators know that. They know that when they're talking to me, they're talking to me as the supporter and the lobbyist for the industry. I'm not talking to them, let's write another 600 pages of useless regulation. I'll send you my bill, and everybody goes to Maldives to have a holiday. I'm not the right person for that. And they're quite aware of that. And actually regulators come to us for that, saying, we've developed this package, or we've developed this new regulation, or we've developed this new initiative. What do you think about it from the industry point of view? And we honestly tell them, well, that it's useless, or we honestly tell them, this is actually great, but you missed A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And they happily incorporate, or they don't incorporate it. That is their choice. So as lawyers, we have no preference.
I understand. I'm not talking so much about preference, but more like, what are you excited about the potential of new regulations that may be considered and coming? Is it more around stable coins? Is it more around DeFi? What would your wish list or dream list or
My dream list number one is that that the US establishes a Bitcoin reserve. That's my dream list number one. Poland and I think Slovenia are already talking about establishing a Bitcoin reserve already. So the politicians are understanding that Bitcoin is honest money. That by adopting Bitcoin, they don't invest in a bubble, which we've been hearing for the last, I don't know how many years, that Bitcoin is honest money and is the best performing asset over the last 10 years. And my dream is that Germany, for example, the German politicians that sold millions of Bitcoin that they held due to the regulatory enforcement action, right? How does the government have Bitcoin? Due to the regulatory enforcement action, meaning they found a criminal, they confiscated that Bitcoin from that criminal, and they're keeping it. So once they have it, it's theirs, right? Why sell it at a huge loss? Why not keep it? Why not incorporate it into their treasury holdings? For me, my dream is that more and more politicians and the government officials and people who have decision about a country or canton or a city or even a village of 400 people. So my dream is that these people understand the potential of Bitcoin and don't dispose of that without thinking. And there's a lot of governments out there that are actively mining Bitcoin, or like El Salvador, actively buying Bitcoin. So my dream and my wish is that people who are in charge of us, right? People who are here to govern us, actually govern us with our future, financial, health, our future in their hearts and minds. Because at the moment, I see a lot of governments who are not doing a lot of smart things for their people, and that's actually quite sad.
And let's hope that Switzerland is included in one of the first ones that adopt this. I know there's a petition out there to the central bank to consider Bitcoin as part of its reserves, much like it buys stocks and holds tech stocks and so on. So
that would be wonderful. The more countries do that, the more other countries look at that. Because once the US does it, that's it. Like once the US does it, there will be zero to none explanation why other countries are not doing that. Bulgaria, for example, was it Bulgaria or Montenegro? Please correct me. They hold a lot of Bitcoin due to the law enforcement action. They're not selling it. They're keeping it. They're like one of the largest Bitcoin holders. Good for them. Good for them. Eventually, hopefully, that will be incorporated into treasury, and the future generation of this country can benefit from the foresight of the leaders who did not act as the German ones. It's just I think the individuals who make that choice will have to be responsible for.
So is one of your 2025 predictions that we'll be seeing more corporate treasury, starting to understand and accumulate some of these hard cryptocurrencies in their treasuries?
I don't mind what corporate treasuries do, right? If you're a private company or even if you're a publicly listed company, Tesla holds Bitcoin, right? Who else do we need, right? We have Elon Musk, I believe, is a Bitcoiner, although with his,
The Dogecoiner.
Dogecoin antics, it's a little bit ridiculous, but hey, we all have our fault. I'm I'm not that particular worried about the companies, because a company can hold their treasury in potatoes right now for all I care, right? But the governments, because why do I care about governments? Because, whether we like it or not, we live in countries. Whether we like it or not, we have a governance structure around us that rules us, right? Or hopefully you're in one of those beautiful countries like Switzerland, where each individual, each national goes and makes direct decision as to the policy their country takes. Or if let's say you're an Emirati who lives in Dubai, or Emirati who lives in Ras Al Khaimah, you have direct access to the ruler. They hold majlises where individual nationals actually portray their concerns, their wishes, and their desires for the way the government should take it, right? So if you don't live here or there, if you live in Germany and you watch the politicians ruining your country, right? That's horrible. That's absolutely horrible. So that's what I'm more worried about, my wish, and that politicians rule their people with their future in mind and in hearts.
Irina, thank you so much for these wonderful insights. Lots to ponder about the state of our democracies that are indirect mostly. Very few examples of direct democracy in reality, and how these emerging technologies need to democratize the way we collaborate and organize and are governed. That is the main important point. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.